Hi, guys. Hi. Woohoo, we're doing it. Yay. We had to wait for Riley to come to start. It's my daughter. Thank you guys all so much for coming tonight. Does this sound okay up here? Yeah. Okay, good. It's truly just continues to amaze me how much of an impact Heal has had, and the stories that I hear, people coming up to me. Rev, thank you for coming. It just continues on, and with I feel lately so many people continue to come to me almost weekly at this point to ask for support or resources for a recent cancer diagnosis, and it continues to blow my mind. I thought it was too frequent back when I made Heal 7-8 years ago. And so I just was inspired to bring together community. Thank you to all of you joining in on the live stream from wherever we are. Thank you. We feel you here. And for everyone here that has, battled the mean streets of LA traffic, I appreciate you taking the time. But yeah, so even back when I did Heal, I just had this need it was this message that came to me that I need to open the aperture when it comes to cancer, because cancer has been collapsed with a potential death sentence in the society, and so much fear comes with that. And when we are in fear, we are contracted and the aperture closes and we are laser focused on survival, and we miss out and block out so much possibility. And so tonight I want to do my best to help open the aperture just a little bit and shift the perspective. And just remind people, I think we need the reminders in this world of overwhelming information coming at us all the time. We need reminders of the power and intelligence of the human body and the incredible capacity that we have for healing. So when I was making Heal, and then even after, and all the conversations that I've spoken to so many people who have successfully navigated cancer and are on the other side of the journey, and they all, without a doubt, say it was the greatest gift of my life. And at the time, they don't want to go back and do it again, because it was intense and, terrifying and required big, courageous acts and lots of discipline. But they all got to this place of this is such a gift, because it wakes them up to their purpose. It reminds them of forgotten gifts that they were here to express. Maybe it connected them with community or a partner, and always, it's the first time that they truly meet and love themselves. And so I'm a storyteller, but truthfully, we're all storytellers, and our life is our story. And when we get a cancer diagnosis, it's not the time to give our pen away. It's not the time to give our pen away to statistics. We're not statistics. So I want to encourage people, anytime, whether it's a cancer diagnosis or a challenge or a crisis or a tragedy, to use that opportunity to write a new story. And I did a Tony Robbins event for the first time in December, and he was talking about the hero's journey and how the strength or the magnitude of the obstacle that we need to overcome is in direct proportion to the quality and the capacity of the hero. So cancer is definitely a hero's journey, and it's a call to take inventory of our lives, to let go of all the things holding us back, weighing us down, lowering our frequency, creating a signature that allows cancer to proliferate, and we're going to talk about that field signature a little bit later. So knowing that on the other side of healing cancer, you look at it as a gift, and some of our panel members are in the journey and already realizing what a gift it is from day one. And when I look at their experience, if we can have that perspective from the diagnosis, if we can see cancer as a catalyst, an opportunity, a realignment back to our true purpose, power, and essence, what if we can just go, okay, life, spirit, God, my soul is forcing me to stop and look at some things. What has gone awry? How have I abandoned myself? How can I love myself deeper? Who can I forgive? And what can I forgive myself for? When I was making Heal, I interviewed this beautiful soul named Joan Borisenko, and she's been running an integrative cancer clinic, 40 years ago. She was one of the OGs. And she said most people would heal, and the ones who didn't were almost always holding on to regret or resentment. So regret is when we don't forgive ourselves, and resentment is when we are not forgiving the other. So I want to start the evening by thanking everybody who made this possible. My parents, who are here. If you listen to my podcast, that's my awesome dad, who I go to all the time for fodder, childhood stuff. And the event team, Twine, Arthur, thank you guys. Thank you everyone for making this possible. The tech team, the LiveStream team, the Writers Guild Theater, all of the speakers and panel members that you're gonna get to meet, and my business partner, Andrew. We're creating a beautiful healing app together. It's exciting. And everybody, like I said, who's here making this possible. And I also want to start the evening by reminding us of the incredible work of Kelly Turner. So we're going to put a slide up here to talk about her research that she did for her PhD, which led to the book and study of radical remission. So when she was looking into cancer research, she kind of stumbled upon these anomalies of these spontaneous healings. And what she found was there was like almost 2,000 cases of these people where they were late-stage terminal cancer. Conventional medicine did everything they could, and they said, we're sorry, there's nothing more we can do. So these 2,000 people were sent home to die, but they didn't die. And she said, we need to be studying what these people did. And in her research, she found that they all did, at the time of Heal, it was 9 things. And then later she went back through her research and found that they all did some sort of movement. So these are the 10 key factors that she found for healing, and for healing cancer specifically. And what I thought was fascinating and resonated so deeply, and is a little crumb of clue of how I would approach cancer, should I face it, is that out of these 10 things, only 3 of them were physical, and the rest are mental, emotional, and spiritual. And oftentimes in conventional medicine, they're trained and focused on the physical, and they're treating the symptom, which is the tumor, because it's very difficult to address the root cause of cancer. It's a complex chronic illness with many different causes, and for each person, it's a different combination of causes. So they're just doing their best to save lives by treating the symptom, the tumor. But if this is true for the people that defied the odds, 70% of the equation is missing, and that's what we're here to remind people of tonight. And I think, it's the taking control of your health and following your intuition is something we're going to really lean into, because there is no one-size-fits-all model for healing. And that's why this panel is going to be so really powerful, because they all followed their intuition, and they're doing it all different ways, and it's working, and they're thriving, and it's really powerful. So we're going to deepen our spiritual connection with Reverend Michael Beckwith, who's going to channel a message and some of the miracles he's witnessed and helped create the condition for. Rev is one of my greatest teachers, and I am so blessed that he was in Heal and that we are in the Agape family. If you guys are looking for a spiritual community in LA, please go to Agape. It is just powerful and will light up your soul. They also live stream every Sunday, so no matter where you are, tune in. It'll change your life. Yes. The Rev actually was the one who, I was going to Agape all the time right before I did Heal, and he was the one who told me, just like the oak tree, the oak forest is in the acorn. If you have that burning desire, that passion, that calling in your heart, you also will be given or have already within you everything that it needs to be realized. And so I crazily believed the man, and I just kept having this vision of putting all my teachers in a film to empower me and inspire me like I had been empowered by them. And I was like, but who am I to, I've never directed a film, you know? So I listened, and he moved me, and it worked out. So listen to the man tonight. And we're also going to embrace social support and increase positive emotions of hope and love, and help us learn to follow our intuition and take control of our health with our amazing panel. We've got 3 people on a healing journey or on the other side of a healing journey, and this amazing Dr. Katie Deming, who is the conscious oncologist. We'll get into her background, but essentially she was running radio oncology for a big institution for the entire nation, and she had a shift in consciousness and is now treating cancer and helping patients do miraculous things. And then we will finish the night being blessed with an amazing group healing session facilitated by the powerful Charlie Goldsmith. Yeah, so that's what we have in store. Thank you again for coming, and let's get to it. Rev, come on up.
Can you hear me? Just close our eyes just for a moment and get a real sense that we're right here in the nowness of this moment, not stretching ourselves into the future or the past, but right here in this moment, embracing everything that Kelly has just brought forward. With a deep sense of gratitude and thanksgiving and dynamic appreciation, we allow ourselves to feel into our deep sense of oneness with life itself, called by millions of names, and from this dynamic feeling tone of being at one with life. The very word that is being spoken now is a law unto itself that only knows its own unfolding, does not tarry with yesterday, knows no obstacle nor hindrance. It only knows itself, spoken with the authority of one knowing that all that there is life, lifing itself. And that everything that is a manifestation of the only thing that is. And in this moment, we are manifesting a dynamic condition for upliftment, inspiration, healing, wholeness, the revelation of our intrinsic well-being for each and every one of us and everyone that we're connected with. We feel this in our bones, and we give thanks that it is so. And we allow it to be so now and unto forevermore, giving thanks to Kelly and all of her crew that made this happen. We allow it to be so. Therefore, we can say, and so it is. Amen. It's my joy and my absolute pleasure to be here, to get to be here with you. And she covered everything in her opening. But it is my joy to be with her. As I was earlier in the day, I was thinking about being here. And what came to me was a couple of things. One, I can remember a number of years ago, I'm the director and founder of the Agape International Spiritual Center, and we've been in existence, we're in our 39th year. And so I was a small lad when I started, and I'm still small. But I can remember a man coming up to me in line. His name was Stuart Sotherbone. And he came up to me very fearful, very anxious. And he said, Reverend Michael, I've been diagnosed with stage 4 cancer in my colon. The doctor is giving me 3 months to live. And I said, Stuart, a doctor can only give you a diagnosis. Your prognosis is up to you and God. And he stopped in his tracks. He said, what? And I said, the prognosis has nothing to do with the doctor. That's something they have to say. The prognosis is up to you and God. You're on a journey. You're on a journey of healing. You're on a journey of self-reflection. You're on a journey of discovering yourself. And so the fear that he was living in began to turn into hope. And interestingly enough, for the next 6, 7, 8 years, Stuart would stand up at every Thanksgiving service. And he would tell that story. And he would say, I'm still here. And so he passed about 8 or 9 years later. When he came to see me, he was in his late 60s, maybe early 70s. And so he lived another 7 to 8 years, and he did not die of cancer. He moved on with a great expression of life. I was thinking about a woman, Niaje. I always get her name wrong when I'm in front of public. Anyway, my daughter comes to me one night, and she's tearful, and she says, Niaje is suffering from cancer. Will you go help her? And so I said, yes. So we went over to her house, and she was about 79 pounds. And she was, seeing her doctor. She was in the cancer support group. And I sat with her, and I said, do you really want to heal? Do you really want to live? That's what I said. I said, I will work with you, but I must have an agreement. Do you really want to live? And she said, yes. So the first condition that we created was the condition of belief. We had to establish an inner belief that it was possible. So I gave her some things to read, and I had her read them every single day. One of the things I gave her to read was a chapter called Physical Healing. It was in the book called The Science of Mind by Ernest Holmes. I said, I want you to read this every day, and I want you to read the part about healing cancer every day so that your belief and of the possibility of your healing can happen, even though the doctors and her counselor were preparing her for hospice. I had to shift her belief. And so that became a part of her regimen. I'm talking about creating a condition for healing. So the first was belief. The second part, well, I did change her diet. I took her off of sugar, gave her a lot of green stuff, all the green powders. I mean, it was a whole regimen I gave her that she had to do every day. There was a whole dynamic of spiritual super smoothies with dynamic green drinks and spinach and all the stuff in there that had to go into her body temple on a regular basis. And then we reframed the whole thing. The whole thing was reframed into a healing journey. You're on a journey of healing. This is an adventure. And so the vibration that she had to carry was being on an adventure. And Lee Brown, who's sitting over here at this moment, she's a spiritual therapist, and she was a part of that adventure of praying for her and praying with her. We prayed for her and with her on a regular basis. So we shifted her belief that this was possible. And then I reframed that this was a journey of exploration, a journey of healing. And then I had her move into forgiveness. And there was some deep forgiveness that had to happen. One, the boyfriend that she had, she was living in New York before she moved back to LA. Before the diagnosis, she was living in New York. She had a boyfriend. They were living together. They were preparing to get married. It was a whole plan for the future that was abruptly cut short because he opted out of the relationship when he found out that she had cancer. So she moved back to Los Angeles to be with her family. So there was a lot of resentment there. There was a lot of anger there because he had abandoned her, which also underneath that, she had an abandoned issue with her father who had abandoned her as well. So these underlying issues of abandonment that we had to work with. So the next condition that we had to work with was forgiveness. She had to go into a deep sense of forgiveness, dissolving resentment for the individual that had abandoned her. And then we worked with her to go through the dissolution of resentment and animosity towards her dad, who she felt had abandoned her. And then the deep forgiveness of herself. The sense of unworthiness, of not being wanted by her dad, the sense of unworthiness of not being wanted by this particular boyfriend. And so there was the condition, belief. There was good food, elimination of sugar. There was a reframing that this was an adventure. There was the deep forgiveness. And this is all a process now. She's 79 pounds, and her counselor had invited her to start looking into places for a hospice. The doctor had said, there's not much more we can do for you. I said, good. Now we can go for good. And so anyway, so she's a part of this cancer support group. She's going to her doctor on a regular basis. She's doing some things I agree with, some things I'm kind of cautious about. And then after the forgiveness piece, I said to her, and it may not have been in this order, but I said, what do you want to do with your life? Why do you want to be healed? There's no need for you to be healed if you're not going to do anything with your life. There's no need for you to be healed. And I say this to people at times. There's no need for you to be healed and get a good body if you're not going to do anything. If you're going to be a couch potato and just live your life doing nothing, not making a contribution, not activating your gifts, and not activating your talents. Why do you want to be healed? And then she began to describe the life she wanted to live, and she began to describe the kind of work she wanted to do. So I had her write down that as a vision. So she's now establishing a belief. She's reframed this whole thing as an adventure of healing. She's going into deep forgiveness. She's eliminating sugar from her diet and all the things that are carcinogenic. And she's doing this forgiveness, and she's inviting herself to now put her attention on what kind of life and what she's going to be doing after this particular part of the vision is over. And then I invited her to find every single day something to be grateful for in the midst of all the stuff she was doing, all the stuff that she's had to go through, the forgiveness, the dad, the boyfriend, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. She had to find anything to be grateful for to allow that dynamic of gratitude to begin to bubble up in her awareness, knowing, of course, that that vibration and frequency of gratitude will change the chemicals in her body temple, because we all know here that you have your own inner pharmacy and you produce chemicals every single day based on your mood, based on your thoughts, based on your emotions. So she had to find something to be grateful for as a spiritual practice. So as this is going on, she is in this group, 7 of them in this particular group. She's still going to her doctor. She fired the counselor that told her to go into hospice. She says, no, you're not holding my vision of healing. So she got rid of that person. And as she's getting better, she's in her counseling group, and they're noticing that she's getting better. And they're asking her, what are you doing? And she says, well, my Baba, that's what she called me. Well, my Baba has me on, I'm hydrating, I'm doing the green stuff, I'm meditating, I'm praying, I'm reading, I'm doing my forgiveness work. And the other parents of these particular girls that were in this group, they weren't really trying to follow that. They were basically following the doctor's orders. So one by one, they made their transition. She was the only one left. She's the only one that survived. So now we had to work with survivor's guilt, because she had a deep sense of guilt that everyone passed over in her cancer support group except for her. And so we got underneath all of that you're holding them in prayer. They're on the other side of life. However, you're here. What do you want to do with your life? And she began to come out of that morose feeling. And there was one other little hiccup we had, and that is once she started getting pretty again and getting more beautiful and living life, her boyfriend wanted to come back. And he was trying to get in there. And I was saying, listen, no. He's already showed you who he was during the time of your major issue of your life. He's already showed you. And so he was getting back in there a little bit. And I said to her, listen, I am kind of your uncle. I'm your spiritual teacher, but I'm your uncle. And as an uncle, if you don't want him to get hurt, you should break up with him. I did. I said that. I said, I'm going to have some friends have a talk with this guy. It's not going to be pleasant. Anyway, he did something crazy after a while, so it became easier for her to let him go. But the condition for the healing, which is actually a revelation of the intrinsic wholeness, was met by her. She shifted her belief. She went from fear, as Stewart did, from fear to hope. And then hope became a bridge coming out of the darkness into the light of possibility, of belief, even faith and conviction. And then from there, she reframed it, I'm on an adventure. I'm on an adventure. And practitioner Lee assisted her with that, checking in on her, calling her. There was a social network that was kind of developed of prayer. We got you. You're all right. And then, after the reframe, a continued dynamic of forgiveness. What do you want to do with your life? And then every single day, gratitude, 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 from the smallest thing to the largest thing. And she went from this 78, 79-pound individual to today, she's magnificently beautiful and wonderful. And she's doing what she wanted to do when I asked her, what do you want to do with your life? She's doing that now. She's happy. She's happy. But she became aware that she had to be a participant in her own healing. It's not passive. It was not something was done to her. She absolutely took on the vibration of I am participating in my own unfolding of being a greater version of myself. So the adventure was not just about her dissolving the cancer in the body temple. She had ovarian cancer that then went into the breast. It was not just about that. It was about what life do I want to live? And that became the vision that she held on to, and that is the vision that she's living now. And when I look over a lot of the cases, I could say, individuals that I've worked with over the years, that particular template has fit. We've watched a woman who needed, and this beyond cancer, a woman who needed a kidney transplant. And I can remember she was in a class I was teaching. At the end of the class, I invited everyone to raise their hand if they wanted the class to hold them in prayer. And she raised her hand and she said, I want my name to be raised on the kidney transplant list. And I said, well, okay, but why don't we see if we can heal the kidneys that you have? And then she said, no. They've said this is a very rare disease. They've never seen any remission in this. I want my name to be raised on the kidney transplant list. That's what I want for my prayer. And I said, well, can we work with the kidney you have? And she was not budging. And so what came to my mind was this story by Alan Watts. And Alan Watts was describing that his wife was always late. Even if he lied and said, babe, the meeting starts at 6 when it actually started at 7, she'd find a way to be late. And he is describing this moment in which he's in Central Park. She's supposed to meet him for lunch. Inevitably, she's late. She says, you got to be on time because I have a meeting. So she's late. And so in his mind, he's thinking, she doesn't respect my time. She's always late. This is disrespect. And then he watched his mind talk. And he says, my wife respects me. She just has a casual relationship with time. So he said, I got time to meditate. So his wife gave him a lot of times to meditate. He said, while I'm waiting, I can meditate. So anyway, that story went through my mind in a flash. And I said to her, her name was Donna, and still is. I said, Donna, while we wait, why don't we see what we can do? And she said, okay. So I asked the class, I said, how many of you gave thanks that your kidneys were working when you woke up this morning? And nobody raised their hand. I said, this is what I want you to do. Every single day, I want you to give thanks that your kidneys are working, and every time you have to use the restroom, you pray for Donna. It was called the PP prayer, praying while peeing. And I said, Donna, and I did the same thing, but I said, Donna, I want you to read this material about the possibility for healing. You don't have to do anything. We're still going to pray that you get moved up on your list and all of that. This is all I want you to do. Is just read this material about individuals who've had healings, had spontaneous remissions, just the possibility. And then I want you to give thanks for the kidney that does work, and I want you to give thanks that your heart is working. I want you to just go through your body and just give thanks for everything that's working in your body. That's all I want you to do. She said, okay. So the class is praying while peeing. She's reading the material, giving thanks. So 30 days later when we meet, for them to take their exams, she's raising her hand. I said, what's going on, Donna? And she says, my kidneys are working. And she said, it just started working again. The doctors now want to do a surgery to find out why. I said, you're going to let them do it? She said, no. So anyway, she's still peeing. But the point is, she fit the dynamic and the condition for healing and wholeness. Last year, one of my ministers was getting ready to go to knee surgery. She had a little brace on, and she was going to knee surgery, and I was getting ready to go out to speak. And this woman prays. She's available for the miraculous. And so as I'm going out to speak, I just reached over and touched her knee and went out, and it spontaneously just healed. And when she went to the doctor, there was nothing wrong. She was available. She was steeped in the miracle possibility. A miracle, as we define it, is just an instant demonstration of truth, an instant demonstration of what's already happening, but it's just happening in the quantum field. It's happening in the invisible. It's happening in a realm that you can't see, but being vibrational beings, we know the difference between vibration and frequency. Everything is vibrating, but the frequency is the speed of the vibration, the oscillation of it. So she was hanging in that high oscillation of everything is possible, being grateful. So when I waved my hand over her knee, she was available. She was a participant in that. And so whether we're talking about the big C, which is caring, which is compassion, collaboration, we become joyful participants in our own unfolding. And so belief makes fear, which is a contracting energy, become hope. Hope then becomes faith. Faith then becomes conviction. And then there's a total reframing that we're on an adventure. There's deep forgiveness. There's what do I want to do when my body is healed? That's a vision. Something is pulling us. I always teach that your pain pushes you until your vision pulls you. You're pulled by a vision, so you're living more for a vision. And then you find something to be grateful for every single day. And that condition, we can live that regardless of what's going on in our life. It doesn't have to be cancer. It can be financial downfall. It can be divorce. It can be anything. If we can shift our awareness, community is very powerful for that whole social network aspect of people seeing the highest and best within you. Then, because we're a vibrational being and everything is vibration, and the world that we see is just a condensation of thoughts, beliefs, perception, points of view, positionalities, everything is condensed, so it looks like it's real, but it's just an appearance of that which appears to be real. It's actually a simulation of life. It's not real life. Then we become empowered to walk in this world of appearances, to walk in this simulation, but to be of the higher frequency, and then conditions will match our vibration. Conditions will shift their vibration. And tombstones will become stepping stones, and blocks will become bridges to a greater expression of life. This is what I know for sure. It's not conjecture. It's not merely a belief. It's what I've seen over and over and over again. And as Kelly reminded us, there were some people who could not give up resentment or could not come into a great degree of self-love and appreciation, so the frequency doesn't change. But if we can do this work, and it's work, I call it work play, because it's the spirit of play. It's an adventure. What am I going to do with my life? What am I going to do with my life? I'm so grateful that I'm alive in this instant, this moment. What am I going to do with my life? That vision will pull us into a greater expression of living, generosity, contribution. Wah! I make sound effects, I'm sorry. Wah! There'll be sound effects. Shoo! Shoo! I think that's all I got. Peace and richest blessings. Thank you, Kelly, for the invitation. Appreciate you and all the great work you're doing.
just beaming over here. Oh yeah, Katie, Lexi, thank you for all. So we're going to bring up the panel chairs now. Got our great stage hands. Yeah. And then I'll invite our panel members up. Stacy, Dr. Katie, Christie, Erika. Come on down. Thank you, Reverend Michael. That was amazing. The sound effects. We all need more playful sound effects in our life. Woo! Okay.
Oh, that's so funny. Look, I'm right there.
Oh, yeah. I can be on that end.
Oh, do we? Should we be matching where we're? That's not my business. Oh, I'm gonna scoot in closer then. I have to accept it. Come over here. Come be with me.
Cool. Awesome. Well, that was a good way to start us off. We got a big dose of inspiration, of possibility, opening the aperture, given the formula for miracles. Thank you. Again, we need to be reminded of this stuff over and over and over. And shown examples of possibility, like Stuart and Niaget and Donna. So thank you, ladies, for all coming. I think the best thing to do is introduce yourselves, and then we can dive into a little conversation.
My name is Dr. Katie Deming, and I am a radiation oncologist by training, practiced for 20 years, also led cancer care, end-to-end cancer care for one of the largest healthcare organizations in the US. And now I help people heal holistically.
Amazing. Thank you. I'm just wondering if we should take the slide down so we're not like double-headed back here. Should we try that and just use the lights? Let's try it. You like it? Okay, never mind. Sorry, go back. Then people can see our names? Okay, that makes sense. All right.
I am Christie Miller. And I'm not on.
So you can go back to the heads with the names, I think. Sorry.
Mine's on.
I am Christie Miller, a beautiful soul
Oh,
Thank you.
love that.
who is currently going through an adventure of stage 4 cancer and living it joyfully, and it's the most amazing experience I didn't know I needed.
Hi, my name is Erika Lillie, and I was diagnosed with glioblastoma, which is a very aggressive brain cancer, almost a year ago today. And the doctors told me that I would only live about a year, maybe 18 months, and I am thriving. I refused to listen to what they said, and I instead went in a different direction. And I'm so grateful to be here. I'm so grateful to have life, and I have a really just a powerful message to send. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Stacy Solodkin. I was diagnosed in 2017 with stage 3C ovarian cancer. It was on every single organ. And I am now almost 7 years clean. I really do have Kelly to thank for helping me embark, I'm gonna cry, on one of the most amazing journeys of my life. Because right when I was diagnosed, she found out somehow. I think Rob told you, and she called me before Heal was even out, and she sent me the movie, and it just really empowered me, and I feel like I'm here because of the messages I got from that movie.
I mean, I just want you guys to keep talking. They gave the Reader's Digest version, and there's so much more to share, so I want to dive into that. I would love to dive into your story more, Dr. Deming, because you were conventionally trained, and that's why I think you're such a trusted voice. You have the background, you understand the system from the inside out, and you can describe what the system is. It's the narrow lane that it's in, and what brought you to wake up and go, oh, we need to approach this in a different way.
Sure. So I practiced radiation oncology for 20 years, specializing in breast and gynecologic cancers, and also served as a healthcare leader. And my radar started coming up in 2018 when I was at a meditation retreat, and the facilitator shared a parable, and it goes something like this. Once upon a time, there was a village perched alongside a river, and one day the villagers noticed a person drowning in the river, so they sent a villager out to rescue that person and bring them onto dry land. But the next day, there were 2 people drowning in the river. And so the villagers sent 2 villagers out to rescue those people. And the next day, there were 4. And then the next day, 8 and 16, and so on and so on. And the number of people who were drowning in this river were doubling every day. So the villagers organized themselves, and they became very efficient at rescuing people off this river. They developed, pulley systems and boats and rescue operations. And the village elders praised the villagers for the amazing work that they were doing. And when I heard this parable, I was at this retreat with one of my colleagues who's a GYN oncologist, and I turned to her and I said, this is us. We are glorified rescue workers on the river, and what the heck is happening upstream? What is happening? Younger and younger people are coming into our offices every day, and by the way, we have no idea what's happening upstream because we're telling them, 5% of the time cancer is genetically related. 95% of the time we're telling people, we have no idea what happened here, and we don't know why you got sick. And so, by the way, when we pull them out of the river and put them on dry land, we actually have no way to tell them to prevent falling in the river again. And I started to think there is something really wrong with the system. And here I was, my job as a healthcare leader was to look at end-to-end cancer care and look at how do we improve prevention and screening and diagnosis and treatment and survivorship and end of life, all of that stuff, the whole spectrum. And so I knew a lot about this whole problem, but really realized we know nothing about it. We know a lot of the steps that happen in Western medicine, but I started to have this feeling like something is really wrong here. But I had spent my whole life, so I trained until I was 32 years old to become a radiation oncologist. And when I started to see this, I was like, well, what would I do if I didn't do this, if this isn't the way to heal? But I started getting these messages. So that was 2018 when I heard that parable. In 2019, I started hearing these messages. You need to leave. You're not supposed to be practicing radiation oncology. And when I told my husband that I was getting these messages, he said, well, this makes no sense. You make a ton of money, you're great at your job, you're doing meaningful work, you're treating people with cancer, your colleagues love you, your patients love you. Maybe if you're not happy with all of that, something's wrong with you. And obviously now I know that's not true. There was nothing wrong with me. I mean, there may be things wrong with me, but that wasn't a problem. But at the time, I internalized that because here my partner was saying, maybe something's wrong with you if you're not happy because, look, you have everything someone else would want. And so for a year, I just kind of internalized that, and I ignored the signs that were coming. And you know what happens when you ignore the signs? You guys know what happens? It starts with a whisper. It's like, hey, pay attention. Hey, hey. And then soon you get the frying pan across the head, right? So that's what came next, which I had something called a shared death experience. And a shared death experience is similar to a near-death experience, but it can happen to someone who is at the scene when someone else transitions. And it can happen to healthcare providers. I didn't know that before it happened to me, but that happened in the fall of 2020. And it actually happened on the heels of, I had just been nominated to become the National Medical Director of Cancer Care for one of the largest healthcare organizations in the US. And I'd gone through this like 6-month interview process, and it came down to me and one other woman. And ultimately, she got the job. And I knew at that moment, I was like, I know this is happening for me. Like, I meant to do something, but I don't think that it's in the system. I was having these feelings. And the next week after that interview process ended, I had this shared death experience. And very similar to a near-death experience, you experience the love and the light and the beauty and everything that is outside what we see in this reality beyond the veil. And it changed me, just like a near-death experience profoundly changes someone who goes through that. And what happened was that after that event, I can't tell you that I saw, okay, this is what's wrong with Western medicine. What I saw was that I had to leave. I had to leave, and that if I did not leave, I would regret it for the rest of my life. And because I'm an oncologist, I've spent a lot of time with people who are facing the end of their life. And I can tell you that the number one regret that they have was that they weren't true to themselves, that they didn't have the courage to live their truth. And so because I had that experience, and I had seen so many people at the end of their life when they regretted the way they had lived their life or the things they had not chosen to do because they didn't want to upset other people. So I basically knew after that event that even though this was likely going to cause my divorce and basically really blow up my life, I had to do it. And so that was the fall of 2020. I made the decision to leave Western medicine. I had no idea what I was gonna do. I had no idea how I was gonna make money. I gave half my assets away, but I trusted that I knew that if I followed, the path would reveal itself. And so it took me time, because when you're helping others heal, you have to be whole yourself. And so I needed to do my own healing, and I took like a 1.5 years off and really did the deep healing for myself so that now I can help others heal. And a lot of what I do is exactly what Kelly was talking about, that 70% that we're missing in Western medicine. So that's what I do now. I help people heal holistically, and we'll hear a little bit of Christie's story. So Christie is one of my clients, and she's had some beautiful results with some of the work that we've done together, and it's my pleasure to be here, and I'm so grateful for the work that Kelly does in sharing that this is important. And I am a radiation oncologist, a conventional Western trained doctor. I trained at Duke University, and I'm telling you, this stuff is real. This is not fringe. This is not like something that is, that maybe works for some people. This stuff matters, and actually this is why what's going on with the river. We're missing, with treating tumors, we're treating the symptoms, but we're missing the underlying, the root causes, and it's complicated. I don't know if you guys know this, but the incidence of cancer, or 100 years ago, 1 in 33 people would get cancer in their lifetime. Today, it's 1 in 2 people will get cancer in their lifetime. So actually, it's funny that people we were talking with the PR team before this event, and people get kind of scared to come to an event to talk about cancer, but the truth is we should all be talking about cancer, because we have an epidemic of cancer in the US for sure, but also worldwide, and it's multifactorial. It's our modern lifestyle, and there are things that you can do to change, but you also need to hit, it's not just the lifestyle, the movement, the diet, the supplements, it's all the other stuff. What are our thoughts? What are our emotions? Gratitude. I love that the Reverend talked about that. It's like there's so much that we have control over, and that's the one thing that I really think there's so much hope if we get it, if we listen to that little voice inside about what does our body need, what does healing look like for me? And you know, for me, it wasn't cancer as my wake-up call. It was, I gotta leave this field. But when I followed that little voice inside, and each one of you have that voice, when you follow, the path will unfold and beautiful things can happen.
Thank you. Yeah, I think intuition is like the number one, and it's hard to discern, but that's why we need the spiritual practices to continue to quiet the noise and the stimulation so that we can tune in. So that's where meditation and nature and all the spiritual practices are a practice in order for us to tune in with that higher self, that voice, that intuition, that spiritual guidance. I think perfect time to go to Christie because she had a very powerful moment of intuition that I want her to share, and then we'll go perhaps to one of the things you did together that led to some miracles.
Absolutely. And I first just want to thank Kelly and Katie for listening to your intuition, listening to the divine, and doing what you're doing, because I honestly would not be alive today without the two of you. So thank you. And also to Rev, who has had such a huge impact on my life. So I was diagnosed in June 2022 with a very aggressive form of breast cancer, as the doctor said. And I was all set. I was on the standard of care treadmill. It was going to be 5 months of chemotherapy. I was told it'd be the worst year of my life, but then I would be fine. 5 months of chemotherapy, surgery, I forget how long of radiation, and then most likely more chemo. And I was ready. I was going for it. And then 3 nights in a row, I had the same dream. I woke up panicked, scared, screaming, F no. The first night, okay, I'm just scared. I need to hold myself. I need to comfort myself. Second night, I've never had the same nightmare 2 nights in a row. And then the third night, it happened again. And I remember just surrendering. I hear you. This isn't my path. I remember calling my darling husband next morning saying, I don't want to do chemo. And his response was, I 100% support that decision.
Mark.
To Mark, man. Yes. And he had been through his own cancer journey 5 years before that, while his identical twin brother was dying of cancer. And so we've had, more than the 1 and 2. We're 3 of 3. And so for him to say that, it was the kind of support that we all want. And I want to give a shout out to anyone, a family member, a supporter, a spouse, because I can say now, even currently with stage 4 cancer, it is much harder on the family and the spouse and the support team. So to anyone that is ever in that space, I see you. I appreciate you. And we all love you. It's a very hard place to be. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you. Erika.
Yes.
Let's dive a little deeper into your journey as a woman of faith and tell us what your conditions for miracles has been.
My conditions for miracles? You mean like what happened?
Yeah. Just what you've been, your approach to it.
Where do I start?
Or what you've learned.
Well, what's coming to me is that when I was first diagnosed with GBM, which it's glioblastoma, but I say go be me. It was terrifying, absolutely terrifying. I did not know what was going on. I was completely confused, and I couldn't brush my teeth. I couldn't remember how to do that. I couldn't remember if I'd shaved my legs or not. My husband, my dear husband, had to stay up with me at night because he was afraid of what I would do. And we have 2 small kids, 5 and 9. It was absolutely terrifying. And I was basically had all these horrible headaches, and then the confusion set in. I didn't know where I was. And my PCP said, let's go get a CAT scan. I go to get a CAT scan and still didn't know what was going on. And the 2 nurses come out, and they've got tears in their eyes. And I thought, oh, this is not good. And they said, you have a mass in your brain, and it's bleeding. And my heart just sank. I thought, what? This can't be. A mass in my brain, and it's bleeding? Am I going to die? Am I dying tonight? What is going on? And from there, I call it the 11-day miracle, because I didn't go right into surgery, and I do believe that that was divine intervention. I was not meant to go into surgery. I was meant to wait those 11 days while the steroids could work, and so my brain could settle down a little bit. And during that time, I was completely in bliss. You remember this, honey, right? I was in bliss for 11 days. I couldn't brush my teeth. I couldn't remember how to do that and how to make those connections. But it was the most spiritually connected with God I had ever been. I was in such tremendous peace. I told Matt, I said, I never want this to stop. This is amazing. Now, of course, it didn't stay that way. But what I'm saying is it was a miracle. And so miracle after miracle after miracle happened during this whole year that it's all thanks to God. I'm only here because of God. So I just that's what I say, to this cancer, whatever is causing it. There are so many blessings in it that you go so deep with who you are and what you believe and what your heart wants and what it says, and you just go straight to why am I here? I'm going to go tell everybody I know that I love them unconditionally. I'm going to forgive everyone. I'm going to forgive myself. And I did, and it happened instantaneously, and that's why they say this is the biggest blessing that I've ever had. Amen. It's the hardest thing, but it's the biggest blessing.
And in those, thank you. So when the fear comes up, because, and maybe this doesn't come up for you because your faith is so strong, but I know I have had profound spiritual experiences. I have a deep foundation, and then something can come out and just rock my core and make me doubt everything. Just happened a couple days ago. And I'm like, dude, I thought I had this down, and now, all to shit. So when the fear arises, and if you want to share, what the recent results are, or where you're at, or maybe that doesn't matter to you, or maybe you're not even in it, how do you come back into your faith and push through?
Okay, so let's talk about fear. Fear is real. It is pervasive. I have been to the depths of hell with fear, okay? I have been crying mess, just lying on the floor, what do I do? What do I do? And it's terrifying. It's absolutely terrifying. So in those moments, and there have been many in the last year, so many, too many to count. In those moments when that happens, I go to my husband and he cuddles me and he says, "It's gonna be okay, honey, it's gonna be okay." And I'm like, "No, what if it's not?" and it is, but what I always come back to is my faith. Every single time, it's my faith in God. It's my faith that it's gonna work out. And when we get to that point in my story about what I experienced in the hospital and after,
I think it's now. I think.
Okay, let's just do it now.
We're here.
Let's do it now. Okay. When I was in the hospital, I had a craniotomy, which means they went into my brain, and I have a large incision back here, and they cut this almost lemon-sized mass out of my brain, if you can imagine. When I come out of it, I'm lying in the neuro ICU, and I'm on steroids. I'm not really sleeping, but I'm incredibly clear. And I know that sounds strange. And what started happening was I started getting all these visitations from the spiritual realm, and it was one after another, after another, after another. It was crazy. But I'm so grateful for it, because all the messages were telling me, "You're going to be okay. You're going to be okay." It was healers. It was saints. Jesus has come to visit me. I don't even know how many times, but I've seen him. I've seen his face. He's talked to me. It's real, and that is what sustains me. So the messages that I got right out of the gate were, "You're going to be okay. I've got you. I've got you." So no matter the fear that I was feeling, I knew there's no one higher than God. There's no message greater than God's message. And so I always go back to that. Every single time I go into fear, I have to go back to, what did Jesus tell me? What did he show me? And he taught me so many things during this time. So I just wanted to share that.
And it can come in so many ways. I mean, in Anita Morjani's story was the final kind of straw that inspired me to do Heal, and I considered is the poster child of possibility, because she was, her body, physical body, there's not a person in this room or an expert on the planet that could think she could come back from where she was. Lemon-sized tumors from her neck to her abdomen coming out. They couldn't find a vein. She went into a coma, organs shutting down. She was 70 pounds. And had a near-death experience and went into that realm, left her body, and just rejoined with source energy, of which we come and which we go back to. And her essence, encountered the essence of her Father. There was no judgment or discord there, and it was just pure love and all-knowingness in that moment, just full union. And she didn't want to come back to her body, but she knew that that was her purpose. And she's like, "But I feel so great up here." And the bliss. And so just with that shift in consciousness, she came back into her body, and her body healed. All of that just reignited the life force energy, and everything reorganized and healed within a matter of weeks. And that is what's possible. And we're all demonstrations of that. And it can come in different forms. But it's just that, how do we harness that shift in consciousness? And if Woman of Faith gets the visitation, you know, we all have our different version of that. And that's why it's important to hear so many different types of stories, so that you can resonate and really be open and surrender to what yours is going to be. So Stacy, yes, also poster child of amazingness possibility. Why don't you share your parents and your fear was amplified because you had direct experiences with cancer immediately before. So kind of share that backstory and then how you navigated.
Yeah, so both my mother and my father died of cancer. My mother was my best friend. I walked her home. And then my father had the same journey, different cancer. And I walked with him. And then 10 days after I got back from burying him, I was healthy. I had just gone to a friend's wedding. I looked really good. There was no signs of anything wrong with me. And then one Friday, I'm just gonna say it, I was having pain going poop, right? A lot of pain. And then after I pooped, I was fine. And I was like, God, it feels like there's like a blockage, right? I'm just gonna watch movies for the weekend. And I stayed in bed, but anytime I had to go number 2, there was pain. And so I'm looking it up on Google, and I'm like, God, it's gotta be a blockage. So on Monday, while I was pooping, I called my doctor. And she heard the pain. And then after I was done, I was like, look, I'm fine, I'm totally fine. And she's like, you know what, go to the ER, just go, because they'll do tests. And I went, and I have my computer, because I'm working, and they put me in a room, and they examine me, and they say, you're constipated. And they tried to give me constipation pills and send me home. And I'm like, I am 43 years old. I am not constipated. I know what that feels like. They bring another doctor in. He examines me. You're either constipated or you have a pulled muscle. And again, we're talking about the little voice inside and listening. And I said, no, it is not a pulled muscle. And I am not constipated. And I am not leaving until you run some tests. I'm not leaving. And eventually, after like 6 hours, they did an ultrasound. And then all of a sudden, they want to do another test. And I'm not even in a room anymore. I'm in the waiting area with other people, and I'm in a gown with a thing, and I'm typing on my computer working. And they do this other test. It's about 12 hours now. And all of a sudden, they start wheeling me back into the room. And I'm on the phone with my assistant, and I'm like, this is not good. And the original woman who had told me that I was constipated, it was like a bad Grey's Anatomy episode. She closes the door, and she pulls up a chair next to my bed. And she takes my hand, and she said, I am so sorry. You have cancer, and it's everywhere. And you can't even compute, right? So I'm calling my boyfriend, and I'm calling my friends, and they were trying to admit me. And the ovarian cancer doctor came down and said, it's not ovarian cancer. I'm not admitting her. And the stomach cancer person came down and said, it's not stomach cancer. I'm not admitting her. And they tried to send me home. And the woman who had originally said I was constipated said, I am not leaving you. I am not letting you go home. You will get lost in the system. And she fought for me. I would not be here if it wasn't for her. And I spent the next 3 days in the hospital, and that was the beginning, right? They found out I had stage 3C cancer, and I went home, and that's when Kelly sent me Heal, and I realized that I had power in this journey, and that there were all kinds of healing possibilities out there, and I was gonna do every single damn one of them. I was not leaving anything on the table. No money. I didn't care. Throwing it all. What do I have to lose? My mom's gone, my dad's gone. I'll go see them, or I'm just gonna have fun trying everything. And I did do chemo, but that is only one piece of the pie. There is another 80% of things that are available to us to heal ourselves, to support ourselves and our bodies if you choose to go through chemo. And when they tried to do surgery first, they opened me up and they closed me back. And they told my boyfriend, if we operate, she will die. There was just too much. They would have to take everything out. And then I did everything. I mean, I was doing sound, I was doing mistletoe injections, I was doing hyperbaric chamber, I was doing acupuncture, I was praying, I was taking my shoes off and getting my feet in the soil every day. So many things. And when they opened me back up, after 4 chemos plus all this stuff, the doctor went to my boyfriend, who is now my husband, and he said, it's like a miracle. It's like the cancer melted away. And the only thing that was left was the one original tumor in my ovary. And I still do all the things that I did before. I still really watch my diet. I still take the supplements. I still put my feet in the soil. But the biggest thing that came out of this whole journey, and you talked about regret, I ask myself all the time, will I regret this if I don't do it? Every day. On my last day, will I be happy that I did this, or will I regret that I didn't do it? And that's how I run my whole life. If the ocean is cold and I'm like, oh, it's a little cold, on my last day, will I really wish that I would have run into that ocean? Yes. Go into that ocean, get your ass in there. That's how I do my whole life. So if I don't speak again on this panel, I hope that you ask yourself that question every day on my last day. How am I going to feel about this on my last day? That's like the biggest thing.
Thank you. You're amazing. And we'll just continue right now. You were working away. She was my agent back in the days when I was acting, which is hence the bad Grey's Anatomy episode reference. I was probably in that episode. No, but it realigned you to a new
It
purpose.
changed my entire life. I'm a different person. I was a talent agent for 25 years. And I was always an artist. I am now fully an artist. And
Brilliant painter, among other things.
I truly believe that my life started to become this beautiful blossoming thing because of the cancer. And I really think that you don't have to get a cancer diagnosis to do this for yourself, to heal yourself now before you have the smack across the face. I feel like if you start to transform your life and listen and really live truthfully to who you are inside, you don't have to get cancer. You don't have to get it. Just take all of us as an example. Like I believe that I'm here to give people that message. Like, listen to your intuition, advocate for yourself, and change your life now before you get cancer. Just don't do it. It really sucks. And chemo is horrible. You don't want to do it. Just don't do it.
Do you want to share, Christie? You're grabbing your mic. I would love for you guys to talk about how you connected and then the support that she gave you with the water fast, and we'll see some results from that.
Okay. So after I had the 3 dreams, I decided that I wasn't going to do conventional medicine other than a lumpectomy for the breast guest. And before I even got to that point, though, I remember it was about 2 or 3 days after the diagnosis, and I had been in this deep, dark place of fear. And the fear was for Mark. He lost his identical twin at 59, and I was 57. Like, no, that's just not fair. And I remember I was standing on the beach, so here's the get in nature. I had been doing that for about 4 months before the diagnosis. And I remember the exact spot I was standing, full body. Cancer is a gift. Huh? I pulled out my phone and I went and bought the website cancerisagift.com. Shocked that it was available, but then I was like, well, yeah, it kind of makes sense why it was available. And so in that moment, I went from the place of fear, because fear is the natural place we're going to go when you hear cancer, to this place of cancer is a gift. What am I here to learn? How is this going to change me? How is this going to empower me? Why is this happening for me? And I changed everything in my life except my husband. He's a keeper. And when I got diagnosed, alcohol, sugar, and fried foods were 3 of my 4 food groups. It was June of 2022. We're coming out of the COVID season. And today is my 1,043rd day, who's counting, of no sugar, no alcohol, no fried foods. And that was part of the deal that I made with myself, that if I am going to not do conventional medicine, I'm going to do all those things on that list. Kelly, if Heal was a DVD, I would have worn it out. I would have. I watched it over and over and over again. I read the book, and I look at those 10 things, and I'm doing every single one of them. So I have the lumpectomy, and I'm feeling like I'm being called to do something bigger. At the time, I was a business coach for health coaches, and I kept feeling it. And I got this download, which when people told me they got a download, I'm like, what, did you plug your brain into the computer? What is this download thing? And then I experienced it. I got this complete download for a mindset course. And what did I do? I put it on the shelf. Because I was a business coach. Let me just keep doing what I'm doing. I'm in the middle of a launch, and I get the call. You have a brain tumor. But I'm going live in front of 3,000 people in an hour. So I had the meltdown, quickly put myself back together. I'm like, meltdown rescheduled for later this afternoon. Put myself back together, and it was shortly after that where I was introduced to Dr. Katie, because I was on the wait list to be working with a shaman. And honestly, when it got to stage 4, I thought, oh, maybe I'll get to the top of his list. And his wife said, you need to work with our soul sister, Katie. And that's where she just jumped in and held my hand. It was so great to have her as a radiology oncologist, because she knew exactly the gamma knife surgery that I was going to have. They call it surgery, but there's no knife. It's radiation. And I was told I got the good kind of brain cancer, because it wasn't glio. And Katie walked me through the whole thing. She told me, get at least 8 people in a circle to pray for you, to send you energy, positive vibes, to see you healed. And so I had 30 mastermind brothers and sisters the morning of my surgery doing a meditation circle and just saying all these wonderful things about me. And they recorded it. And I was awake for the surgery. And I was allowed to have my phone in there with it just replaying. And I felt all that love. I had socks on that said, do not disturb, I'm manifesting miracles. I had crystals in my hand. I'm going all the way to the woo. I'm taking all of the woo and a little bit of conventional. And even my surgeon, when we discovered the brain tumor, I said to Mark, I don't care if we spend our last dollar. I don't care if we travel throughout the world. I am going to get the best surgeon. Because I had hired and fired 5 doctors before I found my surgeon for the breast cast. And we nailed it on the first try. And I told Mark, this is going to be really uncomfortable for you because I'm going to be grilling this doctor to see if he deserves a spot on my winning healing team. And he nailed it. And then I had the surgery. And Katie, why don't you fill us in with prognosis and all of that good stuff? Oh, I was already past my expiration date because the doctors, when I told them I wasn't doing all of the conventional, they told me I would be dead by June of 2023. Does this look dead to you? I think this is living.
So, Katie, do you want to pull up the slide? So with radio, Christie had the conventional therapy that she had was radiosurgery, which is very highly focused radiation into the tumor. And this is actually an image from the Mayo Clinic showing typical results that you would expect with doing radiosurgery. And you can see on the far left-hand side of the screen, that's the before image. And then at 6 months after the radiosurgery, the tumor often looks a little bit bigger, but actually there's less contrast enhancement, so it's less white, right? So you can see that. It's a little bit bigger, but there's less enhancement. And then even 7 years out, there's still something there that you can see. So this is a typical result of radiosurgery. And the other thing that you often see, like in the 3 to 6 month range, is that you would have something called radiation necrosis, which is just a fancy word for dead brain tissue around the tumor after the treatment, because radiation damages the normal brain tissue around the tumor. So this is what you would expect to see after radiosurgery. And I remember, so Christie had her radiosurgery, and then we started working together like right around that time, and we did emotional work, we changed her diet, we did supplements. But then the one kind of radical thing that we did that was new actually for me, I hadn't done this with anyone else, my mentor, who Christie alluded to, Don Javier, who is a shaman, told me that you could heal cancer with prolonged water fasting, that if you could have someone fast for 30 days, you can make tumors go away. And I was terrified because this sounded crazy to me, and I had never known anyone who had done a prolonged water fast. But as I started to do some research, I'm like, yeah, actually there are some centers that do this. They don't do it specifically for cancer, but there are centers that do prolonged water fasting. So Christie, being the go-getter that she is and up for anything, she was like, I'm in, I'm gonna do it. But she had a trip planned, so we didn't go to 30 days, we went to 17 days because she had a trip planned. And she had the water fast. And do you wanna share the last day of the water fast, what happened and that on the beach?
Sure. That was actually the night of the brain surgery, was the aha. So when Katie told me that I needed to do a 30-day water fast, I instantly cried. I did get to the, okay, I'm gonna do this. I had gotten COVID for the first time. I'd just been on steroids, you know, the steroids. I didn't have the bliss of the steroids. And then I get COVID, and Dr. Katie says, well, just don't eat for 30 days. It was much nicer than that. I love you.
I was like, you're already sick with COVID. It's gonna help actually heal for you to start the fast now, so let's just get it over with and start today.
And I remember telling her that felt like a gut punch, like she just kicked the dog when the dog was down. And within an hour, I'm sending her messages on Voxer, game on, let's do this.
Yeah, so she did a 17-day water fast, and on the next slide, we'll see her results. And when she saw the surgeon, I wasn't there, I didn't see the scans at the time. The surgeon was like, what? There's no tumor. Like, and Christie's like, well, isn't that what's supposed to happen? You treated it with the radiation, isn't it supposed to go away? And he was like, no, this is not a normal result. So what you can see is Christie's before scan over here on the left-hand side, and you can see the tumor clearly. And then you see her scan that is just 3 months after her radiosurgery. So remember, at 6 months, we expect it to look bigger but less contrast. Her brain in that area is completely pristine. There is no tumor, there is no necrosis, there is no sign that she had had any kind of treatment whatsoever. And it wasn't until I saw these images that I was like, oh, now I know why your surgeon was like, this is not normal, because this is not normal. This is not what you expect from the type of treatment that she had. So you can go to the next slide. And this is just another image. We're cutting through coronal images here, and you can see the tumor, and you can see here, it's clear. Basically, no necrosis, no tumor. Next slide. Same thing on the sagittal. This is where the tumor was. Now there's just space. And the things that we did to achieve this result were prolonged water fast, 17 days. We did diet and supplements, emotional work, mindset work, spiritual work, and physical practices, grounding, getting your feet in the soil, getting out in the sun. And this is what's possible, And for me, as a conventionally trained doctor, I was blown away because I didn't know that, I was never taught this is possible, that you can just make tumors go away with something like a water fast or emotional work and so for me, this was a big wake-up call. There's so many things that we can do. Water fasting is one of the tools, very powerful tool that you can get the body to flip the script. Instead of the cancer feeding off the body actually starts to use the tumor as its fuel, and it's a way to get the body to heal itself. But that's Christie's impressive results. She did the work, right? Like, she's the healer, she did this. This was all her body, but this was what was facilitated through the work that she did.
Yeah, and thank you. It was really interesting because Mark and I were supposed to meet the doctor on Zoom, and the Zoom link wasn't working, so it was just over the phone, really bad connection. And he's saying, this is atypical, this is not normal, there's no remnants, there's no necrosis. And Mark and I instantly stood about 2 inches taller. However, it also felt a little anticlimactic because this is what I was visualizing the whole time. 2 days after I got diagnosed with the brain guest, I sent Mark an email where I had doctored up a lab report. And the email subject line was your June 2024 scan. And then here was this whole written report that there was no brain tumor, that it was gone, and this whole thing. And so this is what I was expecting, but then when the doctor was like, because that's where my mind had gone, I'm very much into the visualization and the manifesting. When he said it was, atypical and not normal, and then Katie finally, you saw the scans like a month or so later by the time I got them, and I remember you saying, this is a radical remission miracle. And in that moment, that was the first time that I ever said, why me? It felt so heavy. It felt like such a responsibility. I knew I was being called up to do bigger things, and I was scared. And yet, I just keep going. And sitting here today, we have some spots in the lungs. We have another spot in the breast. And I don't live in the fear. I have certainty beyond logic that this is part of my story. It will never be the end of it. And that I am meant to heal and heal naturally, and it's just a matter of time. And how many more lessons do I need to learn before it's all gone? But I'm so in the certainty and the belief and swimming in the world and the pool of possibilities. I've never been happier. I look at pictures of me pre-diagnosis, and although there was a sparkle in my eye, it's nowhere near what it is today. I know you've both experienced it. I have such a deep level of self-love. I have a crush on myself. And the night of the brain surgery, it's just outpatient. Let's just go do this thing on your head and we'll let you be. Mark and I were walking on the beach, and I finally said to him, I need my own. You're good. You go home with the dog. I need some of my space. And I remember looking down, and it didn't even feel like my feet were touching the ground. there was such this level of peace and joy and feelings that I've never experienced it before. And you helped me realize that was ecstasy, a feeling of ecstasy and the divine and the light. And I still call it Gus, God, universe, spirit, source. I bring everything, all the good in to heal. And it's just another example of the three of us have all healed our own way, and one size does not fit all. Yeah. Amen.
Someone agrees. That's so beautiful and so miraculous. Thank you for sharing. And those images are so powerful to, again, help us all visualize in the ways we need to for ourselves. I often, there's different types of cancers and different emotional signatures, and like I said, complex chronic illness, different causes, emotional trauma, repressed gifts, whatever, straight off the path of our purpose. So I'm wondering what ahas, I'll go to Erika, or what you're learning either about your purpose, as Reverend Michael said, what do you want to do with your life, or potential reasons that came to the surface of why you might be in this position, because I think that's when people really resonate.
Yeah, I have a lot to say on this one. You were talking about a shared death experience, Dr. Katie. Even though I didn't clinically die, I felt like I had a near-death experience, and what came of it was just all this awareness that was just pouring in about just the truth of why we're here, and that we're here to love, and we're here to love ourselves. And it was like a downpour, and it was so strong that I knew that this had something to do with what I was going to be doing with my life. Jesus told me that I was not going to die from this. He told me that. And there was another experience that I had, it's kind of welling up, so I know I need to share it. But and this was only like a month ago that this happened, but I have these spiritual experiences, and I call them encounters. And at this time, I was coming out of sleep. I was awake, and I was coming out of sleep, and I was in a different realm, I'll just say. It wasn't here. I'm not really sure where it was, but it was beautiful. And there were fountains, and I was swimming and all these things. And I look over, and there is a man, and he's dressed in a robe. And I knew that it was Jesus. And he held out his hand, and he said, "Come with me. There's someone I want you to meet." And so I walked down this path, and I immediately knew who it was. And I saw her, and she was beautiful and long dark hair. And it was Mother Mary. And she put her hand on my chest, and she said, "This is who you are." And she said, "I want you to look down." And I looked down, and I looked at my arms and my hands, and I was just illuminated. I mean, like shining white light. And she said, "This is who you are." She said, "You can heal yourself, and you can heal others." And it was so powerful that I knew that this had something to do with why I'm here. And it's one of those things that is beyond words. Like, I have no idea why that happened, why I had this encounter, but maybe there's someone in this audience that needs to hear this. Yeah. I feel you. So we can heal ourselves through the power of God. Okay? And that's why I'm here.
Thank you. Beautiful. Thank you. Stacy's getting lit up over there. And you know, there are people watching that have different beliefs, that were not raised in the same way and don't have the same language or experience or belief system. And we are all here for a purpose, and we all have our lenses, and there's a place and a translation of this energy, of this frequency, that's going to come through you in your way, in your language, and in your belief system. And, you know, belief is so huge that no matter what you hear up on stage, everybody's done a different formula for their healing and their treatment. And that's why intuition is so important, because you have to tune in to what feels and resonates with you. And that's the work. That's the work of forgiving, releasing, finding your support that aligns with your beliefs, and create that space so you can hear that voice, and you can be so sensitive and aware and present in your body that when you meet someone, you expand a little bit and you lean in more, and that person leads you to the doctor or the shaman or the partner or whatever that is. Your body doesn't lie. It reads energy. It's the translator of your soul, your higher self. And so to do these practices, do the things on that list, helps you to get more in tune with your body, create space so that your voice and your guidance comes through, so that you can step into the conditions of your miracles. That's my belief. So, Stacy. I mean, your message was so great, but what else are you inspired to share?
I have one more.
I knew you would.
I feel like the through line, even though we're all at different stages of our healing, we've all had these really miraculous things happen. We're all in such deep gratitude for our life now. I feel like that's because we faced our death. And that's what happens when you get a cancer diagnosis. You face your death. And again, I'm just going to go back to when you're in that state, you become so aware of how in love with life you are. And that's why you felt bliss, and you started feeling bliss and walking on air. And I, the same. It's that feeling of like, I'm alive today. And again, I just go back to, you don't have to have the cancer diagnosis to realize how grateful you are for your life. You can hold that gratitude every day. And if you can kind of jump off the hamster wheel that we all are on, and every day just have that moment of how grateful you are to just have arms and legs, and you can breathe and you can be in nature. I really believe that that's healing you before anything happens. I'm just so profoundly grateful to be alive now. I don't even know how else to put it into words. I just am. And I'm grateful that for all the people that came, you know, you guys came together. I had an alternative doctor, Dr. Nolini Chilkov, that helped me, walked me through. You brought me heal. Like, I just feel like your people find you. But I hope that you take control of what's inside before you even have to deal with anything like this. Because I think you can heal yourself before you even need to heal yourself.
Amen.
Amen.
Amen. If my daddy's magic wand that I have, if it actually worked, and I was told, you can use this wand and erase the cancer, and erase the entire journey that you've been on, and just go back to June of 2022, and there was no cancer there, I would say, give this to somebody who wants that. Because all of us are different people. We've all had our own versions of a deeper spirituality, or for some it's religion. And I'm the person that I am today thanks to the gift of cancer. But please, like Stacy said, use your own current challenges. use those to look at your life. You know, I had to get a boulder dropped on my head in order to learn all of these lessons. And there is a much easier way. I encourage you to take it.
Well, thank you. Dr. Katie, I would love for you to share kind of what the current themes are, or like the patterns that you're seeing in your clients, and things that you've become aware of in your work with Don Javier. Like, what are you seeing that's kind of where we need to start addressing these things? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, what are the patterns?
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things when I decided to leave Western medicine and not knowing where I was meant to go, I instinctively knew that the answers would be in studying health. Like, what does a healthy human being look like? And remarkably, in medical school and in residency, you don't learn anything about that. It's all based on pathophysiology, like what's wrong with an organ system, and then how do you use medicines, or in my case, radiation, to fix those problems. And so because I knew I had learned nothing about that, I dove into really studying what makes us well. And healing is simply bringing wholeness back to the being. And one of the things that just made me mad, actually, when I started studying, like, what does wholeness look like, was the impact of emotions on our physical health. And this is something that I was taught nothing about in conventional medicine or oncology, but I knew there was a connection because for a long time I was the only female radiation oncologist in my practice. And so I specialized in breast cancer and gynecologic cancers, so all of the women who had trauma came to me because they wanted a female to examine them. And also the front desk and the nurses were like, well, Dr. Deming will be better with these women who have these needs from trauma. But the thing that really caught my attention was that there is a lot of data around how emotional trauma leads to physical, or is connected. Let me say that. Emotional trauma is correlated and connected with physical illness. And the biggest study that demonstrates this is the ACE study. That's the Adverse Childhood Events Study. And an adverse childhood event is any kind of trauma that a child would experience. Abuse, physical, sexual neglect, a parent with an addiction, a parent who's incarcerated, divorce, you know, the list goes on. But what they did was they studied a lot of children and they followed them into adulthood. And what they found was that the higher the ACE score, the higher the number of emotional traumas, the higher the incidence of cancer, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, lung disease, addiction. And even if you separate out, like, you know, addiction makes sense if someone's been traumatized to have addiction, and then maybe that's making them sick. But if you teased out all of that, there still was this increased incidence of physical illness. And I wasn't taught anything about that, like never brought up. And it seems like a really important point to be told about. If emotional trauma is correlated with illness, shouldn't every doctor be taught about this? So that was the first thing that I was like, that is just, it made me mad because I was like, how come I didn't know about this? And then looking at Kelly Turner's work, 2 of those things on that the list of 10 things that people who have radical remissions do have to do with emotions. Releasing past trauma and then cultivating positive emotions. And so for me, one of the things that is always, always something that is a component of physical illness is emotions. Because all of us have had trauma, you know, it could be a capital T, like real, you know, big traumas, but all of us have experienced little traumas throughout our life. And it's not necessarily that trauma itself causes illness, but if we don't have the tools to process trauma and help ourselves process emotions in a healthy way, our emotions can make us sick. And so this is the one thing that I want people to know about, that your emotions, what you've experienced in your past in terms of emotional trauma, and then how fluid you are with your emotions, has the potential to heal you and also has the potential to make you sick. But what's beautiful is you're not a captive just because you have a high ACE score. So I happen to be someone who had a very traumatic childhood, but that doesn't mean that you have to get cancer. It just means that you have things that you want to process through, that you want to work through, so that you're less likely to get sick from it. And then all of us would be well served by learning how to process emotions in healthy ways, expressing your emotions, cultivating positive emotions. But one of the things that I want to say that's important is that you can't bypass fear, anger, resentment, those things that come up with a diagnosis. If you try to just be positive and you're like, no, everything's fine, I don't have fear, and you're just like pushing it down, that doesn't work because it's in there and you're then now not coherent, within yourself, and you're saying things that actually are not what you truly feel inside. And that's why it's important for us to have healthy ways to release and process our emotions, so that we are not in this spot of like just pretending like those emotions aren't there. It's okay to feel fear. It's okay to feel anger. It's okay to feel sadness and grief. You want to allow those things to flow through you. We are emotional beings, and we are going to have emotions until we take our last breath. So you don't have to be afraid of your emotions, but you do want to learn how to, in a healthy way, be with those emotions, allow them to process and run through you.
Beautiful. It's totally, and as you're, yes, it's so big. It's so big. That's what we're creating our platform to help people do, give them the tools to start to. I just went through the most emotional period of my life, and I was like, I have all these tools and Reverend Michael on speed dial, and I still am flailing on the floor, like not knowing how to let emotions flow through me. So it is a skill that we have to learn and practice. And when we're being positive, we're being positive with our conscious mind, which only has 5% of the power. The 95% of the time, the subconscious, the unconscious, the programming is running the show. So that's why it's incoherent. We've got to drop into the body with somatics and all these other ways to, it's not in your head, it's dropping into your body to move that emotion and release that trauma.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad you brought up that, because the subconscious, guess where emotional trauma is stored, is in your subconscious, right? And that's below your conscious awareness. So you may consciously be like, I know I'm supposed to be positive, and you know what the things that you're supposed to say, but if what is in your subconscious is running a program that is contrary to that, you're gonna keep creating from the subconscious, not from your conscious mind, because that's the energy and the frequency that you are projecting. So I love that. That's the other thing. I think emotions and subconscious, like subconscious work is like a huge, huge part of the work that I do with clients.
Amazing. Well, intuitively, I feel like we've all had a lot to process. And I think I just want to give a hand to our panel members for sharing their story and all the wisdom. And, you can find them out there milling in the lobby at the end of the night. And at this break, we're going to take a break to stretch our legs, shake out our bodies, and go to the restroom, grab a snack. And then we'll come back in for this really beautiful way to close the evening and lock this all in energetically with Charlie Goldsmith. So thank you guys so much. You are all so courageous, so beautiful. Thank you for sharing your stories and your inspiration and your wisdom.
2. All right, everyone, we're coming back in. Everyone can come back to their seats. We'll be starting in 3 minutes. All right, everyone, please come back to your seats. We'll be starting in 3 minutes.
Hi, guys. If we can all take our seats and indulge in this beautiful transmission, so we can all get out of here and find our purpose. Charlie Goldsmith is an amazing human and healer, and I'm going to welcome him up to the stage. And come closer, everybody. Well, you're comfortable. It's beautiful where you are, but I like to get as close as I can to the fella. All right. Thanks for being here. Hi.
Thanks for having me.
I think just do your thing.
Just think, Mike, could I have a chair at some point? I might want to sit.
Yeah, is like a director's chair? Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
And then do you want them to, is this distracting?
I mean, it doesn't bother me either way.
Off.
Yeah,
Okay.
maybe. Maybe a little bit bright.
Yeah?
Sure. So probably most of you don't know who I am, and I'm not going to explain too much about myself, but I was sitting here listening, and I really thank Kelly for inviting me, and listening to people's stories about having wonderful outcomes from chronic illness, I think is super inspiring. And I do work broadly in the space of people overcoming things that are meant to be impossible to overcome. So I'm not a cancer specialist, but I do work broadly in difficult medical conditions, and so and I do that with energy. So I am going to do a group healing on the group. But before that, I was listening and admiring the speakers and Kelly initially, and there was a couple of themes that I felt I wanted to speak to in the hope that maybe one person in the room or many today or at some point could benefit from. And one of those things that I think is comes with a cancer diagnosis is a fear response. I have not had cancer, but I can imagine that would be quite typical. But also it is well known, as the doctor said, that people with childhood trauma also correlates with higher incidence of cancer. So trauma can be a correlate to cancer, but then there can also be a trauma from a cancer diagnosis. So you've got a double potential hit of trauma. And the reason I wanted to talk about this is I think it's very important whenever we face something difficult is to try to integrate our emotion in order to come to the present moment and powerfully navigate our circumstances. And one of the reasons that something like fear is such a difficult thing for people is most people, if I ask you, who likes fear? Does anyone like fear? Yeah, so fear has saved your life more than any other emotion that you possess. It's a hero. So when you go to cross a road, fear says, look left and right. Correct? If you're close to the edge of a cliff, fear says, take a step back. If you're cooking on the stove and you need to go and get something from the other room, fear says, don't go. You say, but I'll just turn this down or I'll be back in a second, and fear says, okay. So none of you put up your hand for being grateful or thinking fear is good, but it's incorrect. Fear is one of the biggest heroes that we have. You wouldn't hire a babysitter that doesn't have a fear response, would you? It's very important. And what happens is our relationship with fear, not just fear, but fear is specific to this, is misunderstood. So when you get a cancer diagnosis, fear is an understandable response. But then what happens is then you get mad at fear. And even though fear had an understandable response. And that is what creates trauma. It's when we have an understandable response to a difficult situation. So our hero comes forward and does its job, and then we hate it. And that's where that is trauma. Whereas when fear comes up and we say, you belong here right now, fear. It's the appropriate response to this situation. Fear does its job, and then fear leaves, or it relaxes, because it's done its job. It knows that you have cancer. Fear response says, we need to take action. And then we take action, as these people have wisely suggested, can potentially save your life. So fear is a hero, and it is misunderstood. And you can apply that to any emotion. Shame is a hero. Shame helps us become better people. But if we hate shame, we suffer it, we create another trauma. And so in my work, and I work a lot with people who are in all sorts of trouble, I see people having these emotions and hating them. And what we're doing is we're constantly trying to curate our inner world to only feel good emotions, and then we suffer the bad ones. And instead of recognizing that, Superman without fear without empathy, without sadness, would be no hero. So it's very important emotions. We have all these other beautiful ones. They make us feel good, but they're nowhere near as important as the emotions that are difficult. And so part of the theme that I'll have with this group healing is trying to help people understand how to integrate fear as it comes, because fear is just doing a job. And the way that it works is fear comes to do its job. So fear comes and says, I'm scared. And if I say, I don't want to feel you, fear keeps telling you, I'm scared, I'm scared, I'm scared, I'm scared, until it's pathological. But the actual mechanism is to say, thank you, fear, for doing your job. It's a mechanism in the human body, and it's misunderstood. You know, if I said, even after I've said everything I've said, if I said, who loves pain, you still won't put your hands up. But if I'm walking along in bare feet and I stand on something sharp and my foot lifts before the glass penetrates my foot or even alerts me to the cut, did pain do something good? Heroic. If I'm walking from Australia and this is regular, I'm walking on the hot road and my feet hurt, do I take a painkiller and keep walking? Fear is a hero. It's been misunderstood. All these emotions are very important. And when we recognize their importance, we stop hating them. And when we stop hating them, we integrate. And whenever you want to tackle something difficult, you want to do it integrated. And you actually need your full range of emotions in order to navigate everything in everyday life. And if you took away any single one of your range of emotions, you will suffer life, because we need all of them. Not just happy. We need sad. We need pain. And it doesn't mean those emotions are easy, but they're still important. And so that was one of the themes. So I hope that's made a little sense. The other theme that a couple of people said here is that everything is happening for me. And what we normally do is we wait for hindsight to decide that. True? So you're going through it, and a lot of people say, when I look back, I can see why I needed that. And that the idea that you can not wait for hindsight to decide that is very powerful, and that's what a couple of people spoke to here, that I don't need to see why this is good for me to decide everything is happening for me. And the reason to do that, to not wait, is so you stay present, and as the difficult emotions come, instead of waiting to see why is this happening, you will process it and stay integrated and make the best decisions from the best place, process trauma. And there's another thing that I'm not sure if this is, I gotta say it anyway, but the truth is that with a cancer diagnosis, not everyone survives. But the truth is, you're all gonna die anyway. True? There's not one of you that is going to not die at some point, cancer or otherwise, including myself. And so when you get a diagnosis like cancer or otherwise, you really have two jobs to do. One is to have the best quality of life you can for however many days and weeks and months and years you are here. Because a lot of people get these diagnoses and can get very depressed, and that can be the sum of the rest of their life. And the truth is, I don't have cancer to my knowledge, but I could step in front of a bus on the way out of here. Like, I don't know how long I've got to go. The diagnosis is not necessarily going to be what we pass from. But I think that when I have worked with people with cancer and some very sick people, what I like to do is have them realize that it isn't all about having to not die, although we do our best. We should be doing our best without a cancer diagnosis. But it's also accepting that death is part of life. You cannot love birth and hate death, because they are the absolute connected event. And so in order to when you watch people like these survivors and thrivers over here. If you're in a position where you're trying to gather yourself to their mental state and hopefully the status of coming through their illness, the critical things are, how do you process emotion so you don't suffer fear and otherwise? How do you come to a place where everything is happening for me? And the reason to do that, some people get very angry if you say everything is happening for me, if you notice that. Some people don't like to hear it. Like, how can you say that? Something terrible happened. But the thing is, the reason to do it is for not suffering, for enjoying our life as it is. And so to utilize, I suppose, thoughts or presence in that, it's okay that I'm going to die at some point, but it's very important that my quality of life is as good as it can be. And quality of life is 100% what's happening on the inside. 100%. You can be super happy with cancer, you can be super miserable without cancer. There's actually not as much of a correlate, I wouldn't think, as people realize. A lot of people who are sad that have very healthy bodies. And one last thing I'll say, I'm not a religious person. I come from a country that doesn't have the same religious threads as America, but there's one of my favorite quotes goes something like, if someone takes your jacket, offer them your shirt, or if someone slaps you on the cheek, offer them your other cheek. Have you heard that? So if you Google that, it says the definition of that is, be the better person, be generous, right? Like that's what I just Googled it then. That's what the AI said. But actually, it's not accurate. What it is if someone takes my jacket, life is telling me right now I'm meant to give. Life is happening for me. So that ancient wisdom is everything is happening for me. And to trust this moment. It's very powerful. The more we're in the moment, no matter how long our life is, dying from the cancer based on the prognosis or surviving it, but if everything is happening for us and we're in the present moment, we get the best opportunity to sit in, process our emotion, whatever the emotions are, feel joy. And personally, I'd rather live one happy year than 10 sad ones. And so the method to do that is to use this sort of wisdom, which is displayed on the stage earlier, and come to it without having to wait to come to it after going through hell. We need to process our emotion. We need to accept that difficult things are part of human existence. And we need to love all of our emotions so they don't need to haunt us. They just are a signal, and once the signal's there and we've heard it, it doesn't need to do that anymore. So I just wanted to say those things because I don't know if I was meant to talk. I was meant to heal, but yeah. But I think they're important things. I'm very passionate about, our ability to. Our lack of ability to control the outer world. We cannot control the outer world. We might think we can, but it's actually not possible. And the more you try to, the further away it gets. And our inner world, where we experience the outer world, is very much within our ability to, not control, but if I don't feel good, if I feel nervous up on this stage, do I hate it or do I say to the emotion, I understand. It's okay, it's not inappropriate. And when we do that, the emotions, they do their thing. Actually, I do want to say one more thing. And this, I always may offend people when I say things, so it's not impossible, but there's one of my passionate beliefs that is a bit counter to the way whether alternate medicine or spiritual communities speak to emotion, is we talk a lot about releasing emotion, right? You can be yoga class and everywhere else. But the truth is, we actually don't release emotion. We integrate it. We don't want to release any emotion. We don't want to cut fear off, because then we are going to walk onto a road and get run over. These are part of us. So the dialogue around release, it's actually inaccurate. And the more we want to get rid of something, the louder it will get. So when you do, and anyone watching here, because I know this is a crowd of people, some with cancer, and based on 1 in 2 people that maybe I'll have it soon too. So it's really important to recognize that there is no emotion that should be released ever, because that suggests that you hate a part of yourself. And so just when it comes to, say, a cancer diagnosis, if I have cancer in my throat, that will have its own feeling, but my emotional response to it is just me. And so if I'm upset that I have cancer, or if I'm scared of it, when I hate that part of me or I want to release it, that's like saying I want to release an understandable response to a difficult event. And so I'm critical of my own response, and somehow I want to get rid of it. And it's a misunderstanding, because the truth is that within our consciousness, we're going to have lots of emotional responses. And if you get rid of some emotions, that by definition, you could be a psychopath. You know, like, we need all of our emotions, but we need to love them. So I will do a little group healing. I've chewed up almost all my time talking, but I'll do it good. So if you want to shut your eyes. Is there anyone in this room who, and you don't have to answer this, but has cancer and is in fear at the moment? Is there any? There's a couple. Okay. So this is going to be for you. This is going to be for the rest of you too, but so shut your eyes. So I just want you to remember these words. It is natural that you have had a fear response to your situation. But the fear is not the cancer. It is your understandable emotional response to a difficult situation. And I want you to really sink into that fear feeling, and I want you to tell it, thank you, I love you, I'm willing to feel you. And you can apply this to anything, anyone who's got feelings that are haunting them, anxieties or things they can't stop thinking about. And I just want you to sit in the feeling and know that the feeling is not the event, the feeling is not the tumor, the feeling is not the person who wronged you, it is your emotional response to those things. So the perpetrator is not in your head. What is in your head is your emotional response based on the response you had at any given moment with a difficult situation. And what we want to do is we want to tell that part of ourselves, you belong to me, I appreciate you, I want you to be part of me, your role is important. If you're honest, you'll realize that that is not the dialogue you've been telling it. And it's not about making it comfortable. It's not about feeling a warm, loving feeling towards something difficult. It's recognizing that sometimes things feel difficult and we're meant to feel it. The struggle is when we reject the feeling and the feeling keeps on repeating. So when you apply everything is happening for me, the actual most important place to apply that is your emotion. So every emotion you feel is happening for you. It is there to be felt. Your body, your incredibly intelligent body, is telling you, I need you to feel me. So in any given moment, whatever you feel, now or any moment beyond now, if your body says you need to feel it, you must. We have this whole range of feelings that we trust. Like I need to go to the toilet, we trust that. And if we don't trust that, it doesn't work out very well. We trust the pain to get off the glass or the hot flame. We trust these things, we trust our body. But when it comes to emotion, we have this distrust that something is wrong with me, I shouldn't be feeling this. And then we have all these tools that aid us to not feel things, at least for a period. And it's that mistrust and the misunderstanding of the heroic emotions that make us move, that make us better people, that alert us to danger and problems. The misunderstanding is where everything goes wrong. So like in this moment, as you listen to me, sit in your body and feel whatever the feeling is. If you don't like my Australian accent, feel it, because you've got a little bit more to go. If you feel tired or anxious or scared, in this moment, your intelligent body is saying to you, I need you to feel this. And your job is to unconditionally feel it. So a misunderstanding, I think, or something that's not well understood is what is unconditional love. And unconditional love is, I don't need you to be any different to what you are. And so when that comes to the self, as you sit, if you wish to feel different, that is conditional. The body needs unconditional love. So do children, so do friends, so do partners. But the body particularly, and internally, what that means is every feeling needs to be felt in exactly the way it's telling you it does. So please remember, we do not release, we feel, and then we integrate. And those emotions that we hate are superheroes. And just for those who I said, are you feeling fear at the moment? I want you to feel into that fear, and I want you to say to it, even if I always feel this fear, I will still love you. So what that means is I unconditionally love you. You are part of me. You are important. Even if I always have to feel you, I will still love you. This is the ultimate statement of not being conditional. In the present moment where we live or where we want to live, we must be unconditional with that too. However it is, the good, the difficult, the days that are amazing and the days that we get difficult information, we need to be unconditional with that too, not wishing it to be different to what it is. As soon as we wrestle with the present moment, we struggle. And being human means to be born, and I've seen a couple of births, it's not an easy start. We have difficult times and good times. It is being human, so we cannot be conditional with the human experience that it must always be good, it must always feel good, because what that means is that we will suffer the difficult as a victim of difficulty as opposed to